Okay, so we're going to look at designing questionnaires and a little bit of statistics work. This is section 3 of the term 5 work. So, part 1, interviews versus forms. When you're doing a questionnaire and you're collecting data in the first instance, there's two main ways you can do it. You can fill out a form, give a form to a person so they can fill out their answers and give it back to you, or you can ask them questions. So you see some people that are standing on the side of the street asking questions about a certain department store or a certain food chain, or you can get, like I say, a form with the questions on. There are disadvantages and advantages for both. So, looking at the advantages and disadvantages for filling out a form. It's easy to give out to a lot of people, so you could stand there and just hand the forms out. Giving it out and collecting it in is not a lot of work, so it's quite cheap, especially if you're collecting it in there and then. And people can take their time filling it out. Some people fill the form out really quickly, some people take a little bit longer. The disadvantages is that you won't know if somebody's misunderstood a question because you're not speaking to that person, so you don't understand. You can't gauge whether they've filled it out incorrectly or not. People might miss out a question, so they don't answer it, so that would make that question or that particular form void on that question. And they might not do it, or they might not return it. Some people might just put, when you do questionnaires, you might just tick bad for everything. And again, it gives you invalid results. So the disadvantages are sometimes a little bit, may sometimes outweigh what you want to achieve with the form of your questions. When it comes to your interviews, there's only one advantage to this that they've listed down, and that's that the interviewer can make sure people understand the questions and answer them all, so they can put an answer down for every single one. The disadvantages, it takes longer. So if you're paying somebody to do the actual asking the questions, it's going to take longer, so it's going to cost more money to do that. The other disadvantage that they don't put down on here is a thing called bias. Now, bias is when it's not a fair representation of what's been said. So if you've got somebody that is, say, the managing director of a company is asking this question, and he asks 10 people what they think of his company. If they give a negative comment or negative feedback, he might decide not to tick the negative side and might write something positive. So you've got to be reliant on the interviewer being fair and writing down exactly what they hear. Non-response is when a questionnaire isn't completed or returned. Why is non-response a problem? So again, you should have picked your sample so it's representative of the population. The population is everybody that is within the group of people you could ask to complete the survey or to complete the questionnaire. So if we was doing it at a school, for instance, we could say we've got year 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. But if we only ask year 7 and 8, it's not fair, and it's biased towards Key Stage 3. So therefore, year 9, 10 and 11, their opinions are not taken into account. So it wouldn't be representative of the whole school. So it could add bias to the situation. Okay, you shouldn't just ask someone else instead. In the forms, if the forms are being returned by post, you can improve the response rate by including a reply envelope, free post, or with a stamp. Some companies even give a prize draw as an incentive. So the only drawback with that is if you're thinking about what we said earlier about somebody asking questions as an interviewer, it's going to incur more cost. If you're going to start to pay a stamp, the value of a stamp, for every survey you send out or every form you send out, all of a sudden the costs start mounting up, and it may become not feasible for you to actually pay that amount of money to get the results in via a postal survey. And again, if an interviewer is doing a house-to-house survey, they should keep going back to the house until the person is in. You can't just say, I'm going to ignore that one, I'm going to go to one that's the next one down the street. because the people that you've picked have been selected in such a way that the proportion of the people being surveyed is going to be representative of what you need to find out. It's really important. That. So, writing questions. When you know how you're going to collect the data, whether it be a form or a questionnaire, somebody asking an interviewer, you need to come up with the questions. Okay, make sure that the questions, find out exactly what you need to know. There's a food guidelines. I'm going to click on it and then I'm going to just quickly talk over each one. If you're asking biased questions, it leads the person answering the survey to the answer that you want them to get to. So everyone knows that recycling is good for the environment. How much of your waste do you recycle? That's potentially saying you've got to give me a positive answer in this question. And you're also saying that everyone knows recycling is good. Most people might think that, but the person you're asking might actually not. They might not recycle at all. So it leads them into answering half of it when maybe they don't. Don't ask embarrassing questions. Anything to do with age, gender, sexual orientation, things like that, people don't like usually answering on a survey. So be very careful when you're asking questions in those sort of areas. You can see on this particular one we've got how old are you, and it gives you specific date ranges. The really important thing here is make sure that there are no gaps in the date ranges you're given. On this one we've got 18 to 25. So what happens for somebody that's 16? Which box do they tick? It becomes really difficult to see. And the other thing is make sure that they don't overlap. If this said 25 to 40 and you're 25 years old, which box do you tick? It could be 2. So make sure that they don't overlap and make sure you cover everybody. This could be less than 18 to 25 or less than 25, so it covers everybody, and then 66 plus. Give people a choice of answers. There's 2 different types of questions. There's closed questions and there's open questions. Closed questions is like the one above where you've given them specific answers, so they can only give you one valid answer. Okay? An open question would be ignore the tick boxes and just have the question, how much of your waste do you recycle? That's very open, and therefore you could get many different answers, which creates a problem when you want to evaluate the results and analyse the results. This one, we've got 5 possible answers. That's all they can tick. So it's going to be 1 of 5 answers that they're going to tick. Okay. If you think about percentages, if they said, oh, I do 25%, I do 30%, I do 35%, all of a sudden we've got a lot of different answers for the same question. So try and keep your questions closed, and that will give you better results. If you're going to use an opinion scale and you want to gauge somebody's opinion, very common they use 1 to 5. So very unhappy, unhappy, okay, happy, very happy. Right. Never go any more than 1 to 10 because you can lose a lot of data. In the bigger the range, the less reliable the data. Okay, so if you're going to do an opinion scale, 1 to 4, 1 to 5 is usually the best type to do. And make sure your questions are clear and not open to interpretation. What that means is, how healthy is your diet? If you didn't know a lot about healthy food, maybe you wouldn't know what a healthy diet was. If you ask a closed question like the one at the bottom here, in an average week, how many of your meals include lean protein, fruit and vegetables, starchy foods? Okay, you could then start to close that question down. But what about if somebody doesn't know what a lean protein is? Again, it could lead to interpretation of somebody that doesn't know what they're talking about. Question 3, part 3. Why would it be difficult to estimate the proportion of people who have cheated in an exam? It's not an honest. Most people are not going to give an honest answer. It's not going to be a question that people want to answer. So you could improve the chances of getting it by adding a specific task to it. So roll a dice. If the dice shows 6, tick the box, mark yes. If the dice doesn't show 6, answer the question. So 1 in 6 people will tick yes. So 1/6 of the people will tick yes. And the rest of the people that tick yes have answered the question did they ever cheat on an exam? You're giving people the chance to, we don't know whether they rolled 6 or not. So in that sense, you're giving them a chance to answer the question. And the ones that want to be honest are being honest. And the ones that have rolled 6 are answering yes to the question anyway. They haven't cheated, but you're giving them a chance to answer it truthfully. Okay. So suppose we had 300 people to answer the question and 75 tick the box yes. We would expect 1/6 of the people to roll a 6. So 1/6 of 300 is going to be 50. Well, 300 divided by 6 gives me 50 people. So we should have had 50 people tick yes just from rolling the 6. Okay. Now the difference between 50 and 75 is 25. If I take them away, so 25 people actually cheated. 50 people rolled a 6, so the remaining 250 have answered it. So 25 divided by 250 is going to give me 10% of the people actually cheated. So if you need to rewind the video and have a read through that again, just to see what the maths is as we go through, please do so. So on to this last question. Try and do it like we did the example before. We've got 440 people who were asked this question. So estimate the proportion of people who watch pirates DVDs. Give your answer to the nearest whole number as a percentage. So the question was, do you watch pirate DVDs? Pirate DVDs are the ones that have been ripped off an actual DVD, so they're illegal to trade in. So toss a coin. If the coin shows tails, tick the yes box. Now if we're tossing a coin, that's going to have half the time it'll land on heads, half the time on tails. So if we've got 440 people, then half of those people will just tick the yes box. So 440 divided by 2, so 440 divided by 2 gives me 220. So I'm expecting 220 people to tick this box without answering the question. Out of the people that we've got, 255 tick the yes box. So if I take 255 and take away the 220 that I'm expecting to tick this, based on the flip of a coin, my difference is 35. So 35 actually answered the question and answered that they did watch pirate DVDs. So I've got 35 people out of 220, which gives me 0.1590. I'm going to times that by 100 to turn it into a percentage. So that's going to give me 15.9 recurring percent. So 15.9 is going to round to the nearest whole number. 16% would answer the question yes.